I have met the three dads walking. They're inspirational, their courage is extraordinary, and as the father of young children, I don't know how they're able to campaign in the way that they do. I'm not sure I would be able to do so. So, of course, I can assure him that I will meet them again and push this agenda, really important agenda, forward.
Yasmin Qureshi.
Hello, chaps and chapettes, and welcome back to your number one spot for the truth, the laughs, and the occasional scathing roast of our political elites. Today we're diving headfirst into the latest parliamentary circus that's got our railways, energy policy, and, yes, even our national security in a right state of chaos.
Well, my honourable friend is right to highlight that the party opposite left our railways in a terrible state. 2 years of strikes costing our economy £850 million in lost revenue. You can't grow the economy if you can't run the railways. We will launch Great British Railways to focus relentlessly on passengers and to clamp down on delays and cancellation. And I'm pleased, Mr. Speaker, that Northern have announced the largest ever investment in its fleet to deliver 450 new trains, meaning more comfortable, reliable journeys for her constituent.
Now, grab your cuppa and settle in, because if you thought your daily commute was a nightmare, wait until you hear this. Picture this. Our very own constituent, Sophie, yes, Sophie from Wton to Manchester, tells me that almost every peak time train is cancelled these days, and when the train does eventually rock up, it's as overcrowded as a bargain bin at a charity sale. Just recently, poor Sophie was stranded for hours. Now, if that isn't enough to make you want to chuck your ticket out the window, think about it. This isn't a one-off glitch.
Mr. Speaker, let me deal with the serious issue she raises in relation to the Chagos case. This is a military base that is vital to our national security and to national security. A number of years ago, the legal certainty of that base was thrown into doubt. And let me, Mr. Speaker, let me be clear, and I'll pick my words carefully.
Over the past 12 weeks, this has been widespread in multiple areas, and here's the kicker. After 14 long, dismal years of Tory austerity, when our railways were treated about as well as a soggy biscuit, now the government promises to build reliable railways. Reliable, they say. Well, if our trains were any more unreliable, we'd have to start marketing them as a new roller coaster attraction. But don't get your hopes up too high, because if history's any guide, the party in charge, yes, that'd be our very own Labour Party, has a knack for over-promising and under-delivering.
Without legal certainty, the base cannot operate in practical terms as it should. That is bad for our national security, and it's a gift to our adversaries. Now, some within the party opposite know exactly what I'm talking about. That is why, Mr. Speaker, that is why the last government started negotiations about sovereignty and about securing the long-term use of the base.
And let's face it, the electorate is fed up. Now, Labour, under the watchful eye of Keir, who might just need an emergency voice coach on Christmas Eve, claims that this government is fully committed to turning our train services around. They want to launch something they call Great British Railways, a name that sounds as grand as a royal banquet. But when you peek behind the curtain, you find nothing more than the usual political bluster. According to the parliamentary debate, and trust me, it was as riveting as watching paint dry on a foggy day in London, the Deputy Prime Minister assured that her department will move to longer-term funding settlements for local authorities. The idea is to give councils financial certainty so they can actually deliver services to local people, rather than the slapdash approach we've seen for far too long.
Mr. Speaker, they were right to do so. That's why the last government conducted 11 of the 13 rounds of those negotiations. And, Mr. Speaker, they were right to do so. That is why this government has completed that process, and we were right to do so. Mr. Speaker, I will set out the details when they're finalised, and it will, of course, be presented to Parliament.
But let's be honest. After years of broken promises, it's hard not to feel like we're being sold a lemon instead of a shiny new bus on time. Labour keeps blaming the previous Tory government for leaving our railways in a terrible state. Yes, they point to 2 years of strikes that cost our economy a whopping 850 million in lost revenue. But can we really overlook that Labour, now in charge, has been doing a stellar job, if by stellar you mean consistently disappointing the very people who elected them? It's like watching someone promising you a feast and then serving you nothing but stale biscuits and lukewarm tea. Imagine this: the opposition leader, with all the conviction of a flat soda, accuses Labour of offering a paltry 8 billion for a strategic asset, money that she claims belongs to our children and their children. The retort: a claim that without legal certainty, our national security is as shaky as a two-legged chair. And then, in a moment that could only be described as pure political farce, our Prime Minister was asked if he had the guts to stand up to Labour donors and approve crucial licence applications. The answer was so vague and weak, it might have come with a complimentary voice coaching session.
But if the Leader of the Opposition is properly briefed on the national security implications when she's asking these questions, which she's perfectly entitled to do, then she knows exactly what I'm talking about in terms of national security and legal certainty. If, on the other hand, she's not properly briefed on the national security implications.
Honestly, sometimes I wonder if our politicians are auditioning for a new reality show called Politicians Behaving Badly, rather than running a country.
Mr. Speaker, I'll come to that very issue, but I noticed she didn't say she was briefed about the Chagos issue. This is important. Mr. Speaker, when she became Leader of the Opposition, I said to her that I would give her a briefing on any national security issue if she asked for it. That's very important to the way that we run our democracy. She has not asked for a briefing on the Chagos issue. And that's because she's more interested in chasing reform than in national security.
With answers like these, it's no wonder investors are running for the hills and our energy projects are stuck in limbo. The idea of a reliable railway is becoming as distant as a unicorn in the British countryside. It's not just about the trains or the energy projects, folks. This is part of a long, painful saga of disappointment that the Labour Party has been writing for decades. Once heralded as the party of the working class and the champions of fair play, they've instead become experts at dodging accountability and blaming everyone else. Every time something goes wrong, be it cancelled trains, energy mishaps, or even the mismanagement of local councils.
I appreciate that their reset seems to be having no policies apart from cutting pensions and having no briefings on relevant issues. Let's just remind ourselves, they presided over the biggest drop in living standards on record. Mortgages went through the roof and they left a £22 billion black hole. And we learned last weekend, Mr. Speaker, that under the last government, £35 billion was lost on benefit fraud and error.
Labour is there to point an accusing finger at the Tories as if they were some magical bogeymen responsible for all our woes. Our dear Deputy Prime Minister assured us that they're working with local councils to deliver longer-term funding settlements. That's supposed to give councils financial certainty, right? Well, when the system's been in shambles for 14 years, certainty might as well be a word in the dictionary of politicians, a word that means nothing to the average Brit. It's like promising a cup of tea that never actually gets brewed. Now, enough of the political circus and the endless parade of excuses.